Okay, let's talk about Staphylococcus aureus. Gram-positive, that means it stains purple on gram stain. It's a coccus, which means round shape, and it grows in clusters. Under the microscope, it looks like a bunch of grapes. On mannitol agar, the colonies are golden. That's actually where the name comes from. Aureus mean gold in Latin. Now, three key lab features you must remember. Beta hemolytic, it destroys red blood cells. In clinical picture, this means necrosis, pus, aggressive infection. Catalase positive. Catalase is an enzyme that breaks down hydrogen peroxide. Our immune cells use hydrogen peroxide to kill bacteria. So, if bacteria can destroy it, it survives inside the body. Quick rule for the exam. Catalase positive equals staph. Catalase negative equals streptococcus. Coagulase positive. This is one unique to aureus only. Coagulase clothes plasma around the bacteria. This is why Staph aureus forms abscesses, welled off, painful, full of pus. Virulence. Main virulence factor is protein A. Protein A binds to the FS factor, to the FS part of IgG antibodies. Now, immunoglobulin G is what our immune system makes to tag bacteria for destruction. When protein A grabs onto it, two things two two things stop working: complement activation and phagocytosis. Phagocytosis is basically when immune cells, neutrophils, macrophages eat and destroy bacteria. Protein A blocks that, so the bacteria becomes invisible to the immune system and survives. Normal colony sites: nose, skin, and ears. Staph aureus lives there quietly in healthy people, becomes a problem when it gets into a wound or the bloodstream. Now, clinical disease. What does Staph aureus actually cause? Most common skin infections: furuncles, carbuncles, abscesses, bullous impetigo. Your anterior phrase for the exam: painful, purulent skin infection. You see that? Think Staph aureus first. Acute endocarditis, infection of the heart valve. Classic patient, IV drug user. The tricuspid valve is most commonly affected because bacteria enter through veins. Look for high fever and a new heart murmur. Important distinction: strep viridans also causes endocarditis, but on previously damaged valves, like mitral valve prolapse. Staph aureus hits healthy valves aggressively, and sometimes it will be something about IV drug users. It's most important. Osteomyelitis and septic arthritis. Bacteria spread through the blood after trauma or bacteremia and settle in bones and joints. Pneumonia, typically secondary after influenza. Lobar pattern on imaging. Now, toxin-mediated diseases. They are not caused by the bacteria itself, they are caused by toxins the bacteria releases. First, toxic shock syndrome, TSS. The toxin here is called TSST1, and it acts as a super antigen. Here is what that means simply. Normally, our immune system activates T cells in a very controlled way. A super antigen bypasses all that control and activates massive amounts of T cells at once. This causes a cytokine storm. The immune system goes into overdrive and damages the body itself. Classic triggers: tampon left in too long, nasal packing after surgery, infected surgical wounds. What you see in the exam: Hypertension. Hypertension is always about some shock. Blood pressure like 70/50. High fever, diffuse rash with peeling skin, and elevated liver enzymes, ALT, AST, and bilirubin. Second is scaled skin syndrome, SSSS, exfoliative toxin. The toxin here is exfoliative toxin. It breaks down desmoglein 1. That's the protein that holds skin layer together. When it destroyed, the skin literally peels like this. And this happens almost exclusively in newborns and infants. Important details: mucous membranes are not affected. It heals without scars. Nikolsky sign is positive. It will be like picture like this. And that means if you press and slide on the skin, it peels. Bullous impetigo is also caused by the same exfoliative toxin. Third, food poisoning with the enterotoxin. This is caused by performed enterotoxin, meaning the toxin is already in the food before you eat it. You're not getting infected, you are eating the toxin directly. Onset is very fast, 1 to 6 hours. Symptoms are vomiting and watery diarrhea. No fever because there is no actual infection. Classic food: mayonnaise, cream pastries, anything left in the heat for hours. It will be like some picnics and some outside food eating and some tourists. Okay, about treatment. For regular Staph aureus, nafcillin, oxacillin, and docloxacillin, cephalexin, or amoxicillin with clavulanate. But, and this is critical, you must always think about MRSA. MRSA stands for methicillin-resistant Staphylococcus aureus. The mechanism is this: normally beta-lactam antibiotics, penicillin, cephalosporins, carbapenems, they are work by binding to protein called penicillin binding proteins and or PBP. These proteins build the bacterial cell wall. When beta-lactams block them, the wall cannot be built and the bacteria dies. MRSA has a mutated version called PBP2A. Beta-lactams cannot bind to it, so the cell wall keeps building, bacteria survives, and it's resistant to all beta-lactams. Every penicillin, every cephalosporin, carbapenems, monobactams, all of them fail. Treatment for MRSA, vancomycin is number 1. Daptomycin is an alternative. Linezolid is second choice, especially for hospital-acquired pneumonia. Exam rule: patient in the hospital, severe pneumonia, not responding to beta-lactams. The answer is vancomycin. And let's discuss about cases. Case 1, okay, let's get through this one. Young guy shaved his leg, now has painful swollen lump. Gram stains show gram-positive cocci in clusters. That's Staph aureus. Diagnosis is straightforward here. But the question is not asking about diagnosis. It's asking why might drainage alone not be enough. The answer is C. The organism may carry resistance to beta-lactam antibiotics via altered penicillin binding proteins. Here is the concept. Staph aureus can be MRSA, methicillin-resistant Staphylococcus aureus. MRSA has a mutated protein called PBP2A. Normally, beta-lactams antibiotics, penicillin, cephalosporin, work by blocking protein that builds by the bacterial cell wall. PBP2A doesn't bind to beta-lactams, so the bacteria keep building its walls and survives. Now the distraction. Why not A? A is an endotoxin. Staph aureus is gram-positive. Endotoxin comes from gram-negative bacteria only. Eliminate immediately. B, gut invasion. This is a skin infection. This is no gut involvement here. Wrong mechanism entirely. D. Spores. Staph aureus does not form spores. Spore-forming bacteria are Bacillus and Clostridium, not Staph. And E. Anaerobic. Staph aureus is aerobic. It grows in oxygen. Anaerobic conditions are for organisms like Bacteroides or Clostridium. Another case, whole family, same meal, homemade potato salad in summer barbecue, and vomiting, watery diarrhea, no fever, resolves fast with fluids. The answer is C. Heat-stable enterotoxin was produced in form before consumption. Yes, this is classic Staph aureus for poisoning. Here is what happened. The potato salad sat in the sun for hours. Staph aureus grew in the food and released enterotoxin directly into it. The toxin is heat stable, meaning even reheating won't destroy it. The family ate the toxin, not the bacteria. That explains everything. No fever because there is no actual infection. No bacteria invading the body. Fast onset, toxin acts within 1 to 6 hours. And here is a really fast 3 hours. Resolves quickly. Once the toxin moves through, it's over. B is the common wrong answer here. People confuse with bacteria entering the gut and producing toxin inside. That's how Clostridium difficile works. In food poisoning, the toxin is performed already in the food before you eat it. Invasion means fever, possibly bloody stool, slower onset. None of that here. So it's not inflammation. Answer D. LPS, which is a lipopolysaccharide, comes from gram-negative bacteria. Staph is gram-positive, no LPS. E. Viral gastroenteritis is possible clinically, but the setup, food left in heat, rapid onset, multiple people from one meal points directly to Staph enterotoxin. Okay, and the last case, a nurse, needle stick, painful, warm, swollen area, and she has a small needle stick injury at work 1 week ago. Temperature is high, blood pressure is normal, pulse. Okay, examination reveals a 4 centimeters indurated fluctuant area with the surrounding erythema draining thick yellow exudate. This is pus. The answer is, and here we have a gram stain, shows gram-positive cocci in clusters. It's already, we can think about Staph aureus. Culture grows catalase positive, coagulase positive organism in blood agar. Okay, about virulence factor binds the FS region of immunoglobulin G, blocking opsonization and phagocytosis. This is about Staph aureus. That's protein A. It sits in the cell wall of Staph aureus and binds the FS region. Now, normally, immunoglobulin G coats the bacteria, and immune cells recognize that coating and eat the bacteria. The process is called opsonization. When protein A grabs the FS region, the antibody flips around the wrong end is exposed. Immune cells cannot recognize it. So phagocytosis is blocked and complement activation is blocked. The bacteria becomes invisible to the immune system. Now about other answers. A. Cleaves the hinge region of IgA antibodies, preventing mucosal defense. This immunoglobulin A protease found in Neisseria, strep pneumonia, Haemophilus, not Staph aureus. The answer C, activating the alternative complement pathway against the host. Staph aureus actually tries to block complement not activated, and activating complement would hurt the bacteria, not help it. D, degrades fibrin clots to spread through tissue. That sounds like streptokinase from Streptococcus. Staph aureus actually does the opposite, coagulase clots plasma to wall itself off and form an abscess. The answer E, pore formation in neutrophils. That's closer to alpha toxin or leukocytin activity, not protein A. And the question specifically says surface protein in the peptide glycan cell wall. That's the clue pointing directly to protein A. So that's all about Staph aureus.